up, guys? This is the Refined Strength podcast, and I have a solo episode for you. And I wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind a lot lately, which is self-limiting beliefs. I actually trained at a gym this weekend, and it's funny because I've been thinking about this a lot lately. And on the wall behind the hack spot was "Your only limit is you," just painted really big on the wall. And that kind of made me think even more about it as I watched back the video of me hack squatting and just being in that environment. It was kind of a small private gym that I'd never trained in before. And that the fact that it was so big on the wall just reminded me of that, the power of that statement, which is your only limit is you. And, every one of us, I think, has self-limiting beliefs or some sort of habit that feeds into a self-limiting belief when it comes to the things that we want the most, which I think is actually funny because there's the things that we want the most, and those are usually the things we doubt ourselves about or doubt about ourselves, like our ability to do them the most. Or at least for those of us who haven't gotten there yet, right? And before recording this, I kind of went through what are some of the self-limiting beliefs I've believed about myself or I've had about myself that were very obviously not necessary for me to believe because I've achieved them. And there was a point in my life where I really didn't think I could achieve them. And so I believed that about myself, that I could not achieve them. And now I can look back on that time and look at myself and be like, wow, you were wrong. You were wrong for not believing that you could do this. And so I thought that it would be a good episode to kind of reflect on that stuff and talk a little bit about my journey and just how I've been able to get past and get past my own self-limiting beliefs and behaviors, but also learn how to not have those beliefs anymore and learn the habit of believing in myself fully in order to get what I want faster and with better quality and with more enjoyment because I'm not spending or wasting so much time not believing in myself. So, to define a self-limiting belief, it's a state of mind or a belief about yourself that is restricting to yourself, restricting in some way for yourself to get somewhere. So I think there's a spectrum of self-limiting beliefs. There's smaller beliefs like I couldn't possibly wake up that early in the morning. Like, I don't know how you do that. I can't wake up at 5 a.m. every day. I can't wake up at 6 a.m. and you wake up at 7. I woke up this morning, finally woke up to my alarm. I've been sleeping through it a lot lately. And last night I knew that I needed to record this episode earlier so I could get it out around the time I normally get this podcast out, which is 9 a.m. my time. And I just thought about the fact that like I need to get this shit done. And if I don't wake up a little bit earlier, I'm not going to get it done. And I'm going to feel behind all day. So that's one small limiting belief that I thought about myself and I recognized, well, there's either failing and believing in my self-limiting belief, or there's just not believing it. Like you can get up earlier. You can wake up to your alarm. You've done it for 20 years, right? Getting up to an alarm. So other smaller self-limiting beliefs would be something like, oh, I can't lift that weight. I shouldn't pick it up. Or I can't do that lift, like a deadlift, because I've tweaked my back before. Or last time I did it, I tweaked my back. So all of these, we have a lot of these thoughts throughout the day. I think every day, honestly, or at least it's easy to get into that loop, that feedback loop of thinking about something that you want to do and then deciding, should you really do that? I don't think it's realistic. And it's hard sometimes to realize that you're doing that you're in this limiting, restrictive thought process, when at the same time, we're taught we should always be realistic. You can't just go out and do every single thing you want to do right when you want to do it because sometimes reality gets in the way, one big self-limiting belief that I've had that I've been thinking about a lot lately since I'm almost at a year in my house. So I bought this home all by myself, and I closed on it almost a year ago in July 2023. Um, and that was a really big moment for me because just a few months before I started looking for this house, I had the thought that I'm not ready. I don't have enough money. I don't make enough money. I don't have a stable enough job. I don't have the things that I'll need to be living in and own a house. I just don't have any of those things and I can't possibly get them. What helped me get out of that was someone else on the outside believed in me more than I believed in myself in that moment, even though they didn't know all of the things that I was being realistic about. They didn't know my exact income, they didn't know my exact savings or anything like that. They just knew that it was a dream of mine, and they knew that I am a mostly realistic and responsible person. This person was my boyfriend, Austin. I remember him telling me, "We're getting you a house this year. Like, we're finding you a house." And I was actually ended up being his first deal as a real estate agent, which is kind of cool as well because he is an agent in the DFW area and he had just gotten his license. And when he said that, I know it was also him believing in himself to find it. So that's another piece of the pie, is that being around people who also have a really strong belief in themselves and need some of that belief from others is a really powerful tool in how you can believe in yourself more. So anyway, back to the house. I didn't believe that I had enough money to do it. And then I got met with the answer to one of those self-limiting beliefs, which is, well, you don't need 20% down to buy a house. You can work with a lender that's a good, solid lender that will help you find a program to use a smaller down payment, or figure out what you qualify for in order to get what type of house you want to get. Obviously, there's certain limits, like realistic, actual limits. Like, I can't go and buy $1 million home, but I can buy the home that I bought at a lower price that has potential to be an investment. And so over the period of that time period, I started learning seeing all of these answers to that basically debunked my self-limiting belief of I can't buy a house. And when it happened, I bought the house and I'm in it now, and I plan on buying another one next year. And I believe in myself to be able to do that next year because of everything that I did to get to where I'm at now, where I have the house and I've been adding things to the house. I've been furnishing it. I've been painting it. I've been doing all these things to add value so that I can use that value later on. So one thing about self-limiting beliefs that I think is also interesting is that we have them, again, because we want to be realistic, but also because so many of us think that in order for us to get to that hard thing that we want or that we need or that goal that we've set for ourselves, when we see ourselves struggling towards it, it's easy to get into a loop of feeling like we have to be really hard on ourselves. We have to like be almost like cruel or mean to ourselves in order to just get that kick in the ass that we need to actually do it. But think about, what if someone else was doing that to you? If your partner or your best friend or your parent or whoever is in your life that you really trust was telling you, you can't do that. Why would you think you can do that? Would that make you want to do it more? Sometimes it does. You know, we do things despite or in spite of someone's disbelief in us. But most of the time, especially when it's someone we really love and trust, if they tell us we can't do something, we start to believe them. So why wouldn't it be any different when we are telling that to ourselves? The body achieves what the mind believes. And that might be kind of a woo-woo statement, corny, whatever you want to call it, but it really is true. Our body listens to our thoughts. when we have a thought, we tend to believe it because it's in our head. Why wouldn't we believe it? But our thoughts are not fact. We have the power to think anything about ourselves and either believe it or not believe it. Most of the time, we're believing in our thoughts. So if I have a thought, I can't buy a house, or I can't do that lift, or I can't start that business, then it's kind of like a vote towards whatever that belief is. And if someone else is telling us the same thing, that's another vote. So what if you flipped it around and decided, I'm going to put all of my votes towards doing the thing I really want to do? Personally, as an athlete, I would love to be in a top 5 pro figure lineup. That is a dream of mine. I've had it for a long time. I went pro in 2017 in figure, and I've had 2 failed pro seasons. It's something I don't shy away from talking about because I think it's a really important part of my journey, because of the fact that those initial pro seasons, I had a lot of self-limiting beliefs that they are why I did not succeed at my goal. I had the self-limiting belief during my first pro prep that I'm too small. I'm too small. I'm not big enough. I'll never be big enough. Why am I in this prep? But I kept going anyway because I believed in myself enough to do it. But it was less of a belief and more of just I should probably do this because I took a year off and I gained some size and my coach says I should. But I needed that special balance of belief in myself to be able to do something and being realistic about what it is I'm actually trying to do. And I think as I look back on that time, I believe that I believed in a different version of myself before I could even see her. And that's why I went through that season. That's why I made the mistakes I did with that season. And that's what made me get here. So I have notes here, sorry. So when we believe something about ourselves that may or may not be true, my advice, or when you believe something about yourself that may or may not be true, my advice is always to question it. I think we can always become better versions of ourselves if we just learn to question ourselves more and question others too, because not everyone has the best intentions for us. Not everyone is being truthful. Not everyone is going to have our best interest at heart. Most people have their own best interest at heart. So that begs the question, why can't you have your best interest at heart? If you believe something about yourself, like, I could never be that big, I could never grow that muscle that I need to get on a top 5 figure pro stage, or call out, then you probably never will. If I look at my physique now as an athlete at the peak of my off season, I'm about to start my prep soon, and I look at my body back in January 2022, which is the beginning of my off season, I can't even imagine myself in that body back then because of how comfortable I've gotten in this new body of having more muscle, more density, but also more confidence. Because I look back at that time, I still had very little belief in myself. So what I did at that time to build the belief in myself is I stopped having such self-limiting beliefs, because if I had totally succumbed to those beliefs, I would have quit as a bodybuilder. I would have said, like, all right, I lost my 6th show as a figure pro, and this is obviously not for me. So I'm just going to quit before I fail even more. But instead, I hired a coach that was a different, better coach and better for me and my goals and everything. And I knew that he had the right belief in me, but also in himself. And I think that's really important too. If you're going to delegate some of your belief in someone else to believe in you, you have to make sure that they are also someone who's realistic, who is confident, who is powerful, not only for themselves, but for you as well. And that's a big part of eliminating that restriction that you put on yourself, is looking at your environment, looking at who do you have around you and what types of feedback do they give you. I don't want a bunch of people around me that are just going to cheer me on and hype me up no matter how I look. And to be honest, a lot of the people in my life during the times that I was prepping and failing for these pro shows, they were limiting. They, because of the blind hype, they loved me as a person and they, loved to see me succeed, but they weren't being realistic about what I was really trying to succeed in. So they also, while I had my self-limiting beliefs back then, and just enough to keep going, I didn't have the right amount of support, right type of support from the people around me because they weren't truly confident in what it is I was even doing or trying to do. But now I'm surrounded by people that know exactly what it is I'm trying to do, that are realistic about those things, and they have seen me and watched me succeed and watched me grow into the person that I am now. So that gives them even more confidence to say, you can do this. And I believe in you. I believe you will be at your very best and you will leave nothing behind. And that's powerful when you know those people are not the type of people to just gas you up and blow smoke up your ass just because they want something out of you or they want to be supportive, even though that's not supportive. So having the right people around you, having the right environment. So an environment that gives you peace, an environment that helps you do the things that you need to do in order to reach that goal. Having my office set up so I can podcast anytime I want is really important to me if I want a growing podcast. This is episode 9, I think, so I'm still so new, but I have this overwhelming belief that this podcast can become something great if I just keep going. And so, and that's partially due to my environment and my beliefs, but also the fact that I've done this before and I've watched others do it. And so instead of thinking, well, why do I think I should be able to do this? That's ridiculous. I think, why not me? Why couldn't I do this? Same thing with the Figure Pro stage, same thing as with me as a coach. I've been coaching full time since 2021, and a year, just 6 months to a year prior to that, when I was coaching maybe 5 clients at a time for the last 2 or 3 years, in 2020, I had no belief that I could become a coach full time. But someone gave me the opportunity and I ran with it. I bet on myself and I believed in myself enough to just learn how to get better. And within 3 months of making that decision, I got to quit my corporate job and become a full-time coach. And from there, after seeing myself doing that, seeing myself get over that self-limiting belief that I had had for years, that had been pushed on me for years, I then was able to grow into a coach I never thought possible, where I was having clients win overalls, win shows, make insane transformations. And not only that, but make transformations in their minds and in their personal lives and their health journeys. And another thing that I even saw that I never expected was that other coaches would come to me for guidance and advice. And those, all of those things started giving me confidence, not cockiness, but confidence in myself that I'm really doing things right. Am I still going to do things wrong? Absolutely. There's going to be mistakes that I've made. I've made plenty of them, but I get better from every mistake. I don't get worse. I don't make one mistake. I'm not going to make one mistake and just not be a coach anymore. I have, a roster of clients that helps me pay my mortgage, pay my bills, live my life, and give back to my clients and give back to other coaches if I want to do that. I have this level of business because of all of those beliefs that I put away and decided not to believe and believe in myself instead. One thing, going back to just how you respond to other people in your environment and how you make sure that you are doing the best for yourself with when self-limiting beliefs come up. remember that thing you're probably taught when you're a kid is like treat others how you wish to be treated. Well, the same goes in the reverse. Treat yourself how you wish others would treat you. So going back to what I said about like, would you want to believe the person who trusts you, who you love, who you trust and everything that says you can't do that? Why would you even try to do that? That's ridiculous. That's stupid. Why, like that, you would feel like shit. You would feel like, does this person even love me? Does this person even support me? Do they believe in me? No, they obviously don't. So think about that when you're saying things to yourself. I can't do this. You're stupid for thinking you can do this. Imposter syndrome comes from partially that wrong self-limiting belief, but it also comes from just not knowing enough, just not being good enough. But you're not going to get better than that. You're not going to prove yourself not an imposter by continuing to think like that. If anything, you'll get worse thinking like that. So how do you prove to yourself that you're not an imposter? You start doing the things that the thing you want to be does. So me as a coach, if I want to become a better coach that knows more and knows better and treats and does better work with their athletes, well, it doesn't come from staying in the same place and only doing things the way I've always done them. It comes from learning from my experience, working my experience, knowing the clients really well, and becoming better as a coach. How do I become better as a coach? I get education, I get mentorship, I continue asking questions of my clients, I read, I do all of these things, and I learn from my mistakes and I learn from my successes. I learn from other coaches, I ask for help. All of these things are things that I believe I only do because I don't doubt myself. If I doubted myself, I would probably just stay in this little box of like, this is how I was taught initially, this is how I've always coached, so this is how I'm going to coach from now on. And that's not, you can't grow like that. You reach a plateau at a certain point when you're doing that. And if you're on a plateau for too long, that's when I believe you truly start to come down over time, ultimately. And I don't ever want to do that. So I'm going to continue going up. So to wrap up, I know this is a short episode, but I want to keep these solo casts shorter for you guys. How to get over your self-limiting beliefs. One is ask yourself questions. Don't believe your initial thought. You have the power to watch yourself have a thought and say like, is that true? Is that helping me? Is that hurting me? Can I find a way around that? So don't believe everything you think. Another thing is just having a plan with truly realistic expectations. And realistic can still be incredible and fantastic. Realistic doesn't have to be boring or small. It can still be big. You have to dream big if you want to achieve big. So what are some ways that you can make a big, dreamy goal really realistic? It's setting up a timeline and like setting up a loose timeline that you can be flexible with. Like in order to get to that, for me, that level where I'm top 5 at a figure pro show, I need to do all of these things. I need to take the time and I need to enlist the right people and have the right people in my life, have the right energy in my life and my day-to-day life. And I also need to believe in myself. And the other part of that is being present in every portion of the plan. Don't be rushing towards the thing that you want, because if you rush, you leave behind so many things. You leave behind so much progress, so much joy that you can take in just knowing that you are doing everything correctly. You are doing everything to your best ability. Because if you're not doing that, and if you can't see yourself doing that correctly, doing that with all of your heart, then you lose the likelihood that you're going to really believe in yourself when things get really hard. Because when things are easy, it's cool and we want to kind of rush through things sometimes. But when things get hard, you also don't want to rush. You want to make sure that, like, am I doing everything correctly? Am I doing everything to the best of my ability? Because if I'm not, that's why it's hard. I need to do better. And so being humble is another part of a self-limiting belief, is you have to be able to look at yourself and be hard enough on yourself to see like, you're not doing quite as well as you should. You're not pushing quite as hard. Like if I'm in a lift and I know, like, oh my God, I'm failing, I can't do another rep. But just that thought is what's holding me back from getting a few more reps. Instead of thinking, I just need to do. So, similar with just everyday life things, the bigger spectrum self limiting beliefs is be humble and know that you're going to get there one day, but just because you're not here now doesn't mean you won't. You have to be able to see yourself doing more and see yourself for not doing as much as you could. And then the last part is just your environment and making sure that you have the right people in your corner, in your circle, that not only that don't blindly believe in you, but they believe in you because of the confidence that you and your actions and your relationship has given them. So if they have confidence in you that's founded on all the right things, then they're not going to gas you up with nothing to back that up. They're going to support you. Support is a lot better than hype. So always keep that in mind. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I really enjoy doing these. I'm going to try to do a little bit more of them. Also some Q&As and things like that. So if you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. Bye.